Hello there, welcome to Cool Talk and the events of 2019. Let us begin. The Nobel Peace Prize for that year went to former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, for ending the stalemate between Ethiopia and Eritrea. South Park airs an episode that many felt mocked the country of China, so it is banned in China forever. Mohammed V becomes the first Malaysian monarch to abdicate the throne. In Venezuela, thousands protest the election of Nicolás Maduro. They were in favor of Juan Guaido. Several die in the protest. Now, Guaido tried to lead an uprising to remove Maduro, but he fails. Guaido is prohibited from leaving the country. Another opposition leader, Edmundo Rada, is found by the side of the road with 2 bullets in his neck and his body burned. The last ISIS holdout falls at the Battle of Baghouz Fawqani. In New Zealand, terrorists attack, blow up 2 mosques, and take the lives of 50 people. Google is fined $1.7 billion for freezing out arrivals in online advertising. A chemical plant explodes in China, killing 78 and injuring 600. This is the first image ever recorded of a black hole. It was taken by the Event Horizon Telescope in the M87 galaxy. A new species of human, the Homo luzonensis, is found in fossil fragments that were discovered in a cave in the Philippines. Julian Assange, co-founder of WikiLeaks, is arrested in London for conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. After 30 years in office, President Omar al-Bashir of Sudan is overthrown. The Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris catches fire. The roof and the main spire collapses. A series of bomb attacks in Sri Lanka leaves 259 dead. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has meetings with American President Donald Trump, Russian leader Vladimir Putin, and Chinese President Xi Jinping. For the first time in almost 200 years, a Japanese emperor abdicates from the throne as Emperor Akihito steps down. In Congo, deaths from Ebola surpasses 1,000, the second deadliest Ebola outbreak in history. The Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform in Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services announces that an unprecedented 1 million species are threatened with extinction. British Prime Minister Theresa May resigns as leader of the Conservative Party. The new Prime Minister would become Boris Johnson, a nationalist. In Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, a power outage affects 50 million people. Hurricane Barry hits the Gulf Coast of the United States and causes $500 million in damages. In Greenland, 11 billion tons of ice melt in 1 day. In 2019, there were 36,000 rainforest fires in the Amazons in Bolivia, Paraguay, and Brazil. German and French leaders Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron describe it as an international emergency. Over 2 million acres were burnt. Over $900 billion in cost. The leaders blamed Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro for encouraging deforestation and weakening environmental protections. Greta Thunberg was nominated again for the Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts in environmental protection and becomes Time magazine's youngest person of the year. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, leader of the Sinaloa cartel from Mexico, is sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. But when his son, Ovidio Guzman, was arrested, a shootout occurs in Mexico. 8 people were killed, 56 convicts escaped from prison, and Guzman is released in an attempt to avoid more bloodshed. And the cartel threatens mass civilian deaths. In Iran, a 29-year-old Sahar Khodayari tries to enter a public stadium to watch a soccer game, which is illegal for women. She was arrested and faced a possible 6-month jail sentence. So, she sets herself on fire in protest and dies a week later. The United States performs drone attacks in Afghanistan, killing 30 nut farmers. President Trump had planned to meet with Afghan leaders in Camp David to discuss a possible peace treaty. But when the Taliban claims responsibility for bombings in Kabul, Trump calls the meeting off. Trump then approves sending several hundred troops and military equipment to Saudi Arabia. Then, U.S. bombings take place and kill over 39 civilians. The United States said the attacks were against drug labs. A New York Times report claims that Russian planes had bombed over 50 hospitals and clinics in Syria. Jessica Meir and Christina Koch conduct the first all-female spacewalk outside the International Space Station. In England, the bodies of 39 people were found dead in a truck container, possibly victims of human trafficking. 2 of the 39 were 15-year-old boys. An earthquake on the island of Mindanao in the Philippines leaves 12,000 homeless. Flooding leaves over 200,000 homeless in Somalia and 29,000 homeless in Kenya. Then a plague of locusts destroys 173,000 acres of cropland in Ethiopia and Somalia. 11,000 scientists issue a published warning that the planet is in a state of climate emergency. Congolese rebel leader Bosco Ntaganda is sentenced to 30 years in prison for war crimes. The first known case of the coronavirus disease is reported. The pandemic begins in Wuhan, Hubei, China. In a little over a year, 110 million cases would be confirmed, along with 2.5 million deaths. Jeffrey Epstein, an American financier, was a convicted sex offender who had climbed the social ladders. He owned his own private island. He rubbed elbows with celebrities, power players, and world leaders, such as former Presidents Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and United Kingdom's Prince Andrew. He had abused several women and children, as well as passing them along to some of his contacts. He was arrested for sex trafficking of minors. He died in his jail cell. Officially, it was called a suicide by hanging, but many dispute this. Pope Francis abolishes secrecy in sex abuse cases in the Vatican in order to make things a bit more transparent. And he also changed the definition of what was considered child pornography. Before, if the participants were 14 or under, it was child pornography. That age has been raised to 18 years. The United States Space Force is launched. In Afghanistan, the Taliban calls a ceasefire, and this rekindles hopes for a peace agreement with the United States. In China, Chinese biophysicist He Jiankui is arrested and sentenced to 3 years in prison for his genetic research efforts. He had been accused of editing the genes of newborn babies. Congress introduces articles of impeachment against U.S. President Donald Trump for abuse of power, but they are not able to remove him from office.
뭐야, 소독해? 창문 닫아.
나도 봐. 공짜로 집안에 소독도 하고.
This is how you dress in Florida? In a suit?
For a meeting? Anywhere. Florida, Timbuktu, I dress in a suit. For a meeting.
May we come in? Thank you so much. Heil Hitler.
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 You wanted it until you didn't. You used me so you could get out of LA.
I didn't use you.
You did, and then you blamed me for it. You always made me aware of what I was doing wrong, how I was falling short.
I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it. But I'm so lonely.
Seems this world got you down. You're feeling bad vibrations.
My entire ownership of Blood Like Wine Publishing, I leave in its entirety to Marta Cabrera. The copyright of its catalog, likewise, I leave in its entirety to Marta Cabrera.
You're coming together. Is your undoing.
Avengers!
Assemble.
And that's it. My next video would be 2020 and the end of the history of the world in my series. In the meantime, tell me what you think. Send me your likes, comment below, or better yet, subscribe. This is Cool Talk.